welcome to the studio. We got a new painting today, blank canvas, and some American bison. I'm gonna try to paint these today. This is obviously a scene in maybe Montana somewhere. I didn't take this picture, it's not mine. I got it from a Facebook group that gives free reference photos for artists. But I really like this picture, I like the colors in it. I'm not gonna try to paint it exactly. Try to get the colors right because I really like that and the composition as close as possible, but I'm just going to try it and see what happens. Let's go. On the palette, we're going to start out with Ultramarine Blue, Burnt Umber, Cad Light Yellow, Quinacridone Magenta, and some white Gesso. I think I'll be able to get all of these colors out of just these few. Now, as usual, I'm going to start in the back and work forward. So I think I'm going to start with this sky. It's kind of a gray. It's got a little hue, a little bit of that pink in the sky and that gray. But there's no sky, actually. It's just trees. You can barely tell because they're so far back. But it's just trees in the background. So I'm going to start back there, but I think I'll coat the whole canvas with that base color. It's a good neutral color to start with. And it'll just give me a good coat of paint to work with. So let's start by making that color. Start with some... Let's see. I'll start with the Ultramarine Blue and Burnt Umber. That's going to give me a black. A little water in that. Probably need a little more paint. It's going to give me a kind of a softer black. I'm going to let it lean a little towards the blue side. And a touch of this magenta in there to wake it up a little bit. And then I'll lighten it to the value that I want. That looks pretty close already. I'll get a little bit more magenta. Yeah, I like that. It's a little dark. That little more magenta. That stuff you got to really use a little at a time because it is powerful. Yeah, I think that's pretty close right there. Maybe a little dark still. And it's going to dry a little darker. And I like having a lot of gesso in this first mixture because that gives me a good, base to paint on. I think we'll start with that. That looks good right there. All right, first thing to do is just coat the canvas. I've just got this big 1.5-inch brush. This is just a 11 by 14 canvas. This is not a very big one. So this little 1.5-inch brush works pretty well. Kind of thick, holds a lot of paint, so I can just work quickly. And that's usually the brush that I started painting with. Start with the big brushes and end with the little ones. And so the bottom of this painting is not this color. I'm just trying to get a base coat, something to paint on. And while this is still wet and using this same brush, I'm going to darken that color a little bit. Just a different variation of it. Slightly darker. And then come and put some texture. That's too dark. Just slightly darker. Like I said, there's no sky. But there are trees way in the back. And you can't really tell what they are. They're just texture. So this will dry with just a little character to it. Doesn't need to be too much. Make it a little darker. Yeah. All the way off the top of the canvas. There is no sky in this one. Yeah. And for some variation, I'm going to go even darker. Maybe a little more bluish. Yeah. Very faint. Very subtle. And not everywhere, just here and there. I don't want to stop at the top of the canvas. I want to make sure I go off the top. And just like that, first step complete. All right, got that dried off. Let me go just a little darker, and I've got my dagger brush here. This is one that's, you can use a flat brush, you could use whatever. These are kind of evergreen trees far in the back, so they kind of have a peak, top to them like that. And this first row back here is just a little closer. I'm not going to paint every tree. I want to just make sure that I'm not getting a perfectly straight, line of them there. A few here, a few there. And try to get these to blend kind of with what's behind there, because it's not a ridge, it's not a hard line, it's just ones that are a little closer. This paint has a pretty good bit of water in it. That way when it dries, it's a little more see-through. When it dries, it'll not be quite as prominent. But I did dry the background first, so that makes it kind of have cleaner edges on top. The trick to this is just do it quick. If you take too much time trying to paint trees, you get, bogged down in this step. This is one of those steps that you don't really want to be noticeable at the end of the painting. Not that important. Just kind of scrub out the bottom a little bit. All right, I think that's good enough. All right, this next color, the next row of trees is a little more defined. It's still gray, still very subtle, but it's got a little tint of green to it. So we'll try to get that base color. We'll do the base color and then come back and do kind of the darker areas and give a little more definition. But there is a pretty clearly defined line there between the two. So I'm going to start with my gray that I already have right here. Just try to add some yellow to it and see what it does. If you take, a black basically or gray and add yellow to it, it kind of starts leaning it towards green. That is, it's hard to tell on here what we're going to have. That's why I like to print this out so I can kind of judge the colors. Like I said, the composition, the exact details of this are not super important, but I do want to have these colors close. That's pretty good. Let's try that. Let's see what that one looks like. I did dry this, so I may need to go a little darker. Just more of the same. Not really showing up too good on there. That's better. And like I said, it's going to have a darker layer too to the shadows of it. All right, and this row kind of follows, just kind of straight across to the other side. Again, I don't want a perfectly straight line. I'm just trying to get some treetops in there. Sometimes you go a little higher, sometimes a little lower. Not really thinking about individual trees. And again, the bottom is going to kind of fuzz out because it's going to get covered. This is a pretty thick section. I'm going to come on down. I may need to make a little more paint. Not trying to paint smooth, when it's choppy, I want to get that, any chance you get to make some texture. Take it. All right, I'm going to make a little more paint, so I'm running out, and it's going to be a hair darker this time, I think. Just coming forward. But this is the same color. Just slightly different value, slightly darker value. Yeah, just slightly. Yeah. And we'll come forward with it. Because everything gets darker and more clearly defined as it gets closer to the foreground. Your stuff far off in the distance is always going to be more gray, or actually more atmosphere color, sky color. If you're doing a painting with an orange sky, everything as it goes further away gets more orange. But as we come closer, it gets darker. That's how we create depth. All right, good texture. So now I'm going to go with that same mixture of colors, but something darker. for the shadows of these trees. We don't really have a clearly defined direction of where the sun is coming from. It looks like more or less just from straight above. But these trees underneath, they do have kind of some darker spots in here that are just kind of shadows of these trees. So just here and there. Again, this is not the star of this painting. It's just, it needs to look not bad. You don't have to be perfect. And kind of all the way across. As I come down, I'm going to let some of that lighter show through for sure. If you're looking at the photo, and I have a little community class that we teach that is mainly for beginners, and when you're just starting out, you start thinking, well, these are not trees, they look like brush strokes. It just looks like you took your brush and threw some. Well, that's the point. If you want the photo, just hang the photo on the wall. You want a painting, brush strokes are okay. Brush strokes are a good thing. Okay, I think I like that. Let's dry that and we'll see what's next. Now that it's dry, I think I do want to do one more application of that, a little darker. Not as much as before. And coming a little closer still, just a little lower. And I know some of this will be covered up because my other land is going to come up about right here. But that's okay. Let's skip a spot and do some more over here, just here and there. I don't want perfect rows of trees. Yeah, I think that helps. Okay. I think that's going to work. I'll dry that, and we'll start on the ground. Okay, I know that this land is going to start kind of right here, a little bit above halfway, and on the other side it's a little lower, so it's going to kind of run up like that, about like that. Let's start there. There is this row of trees right over the ridge there. So start with those before I paint the actual ridge in. Same brush, and I'm going to make a color that's a little greener, a little darker. Let's look at that. Okay, for this one I'm going to come outside of my puddle here because all of that has gesso in it. I want to start a pile without gesso, but it's basically going to be the same ideas, same colors. I'm start with a black or blue and brown mixture. It's about as close as I get to black. And we'll let it lean a little bit towards blue and add yellow to it. That's going to give me that green that I like. That kind of, forest green, I guess you'd call it. These are evergreen trees, so that's a pretty good color for it. At this point, if it's too green, you can put a little more brown in it. If you need it to be darker, add blue and brown. If you want it greener, add more yellow. And a touch of this magenta will actually tone it down a little bit, gives it a good rich color. Those are pretty much opposite colors. Red and green are complementary colors, so mixing them together makes kind of your shadow tone. I think I'll start with that right there. So these are closer. They are more defined. They're kind of right up here. I'm going to put the height where I want it first. And it's just a few, so don't want to do too much. And there's a few that kind of peek over the ridge over there. And I think with these, I just want to kind of do a little back and forth. I want to make sure I leave some light showing through them. Little detail, but it's not a whole lot. And my line is there just as an indicator. Don't care if I paint over it a little bit. Should come on down to it. Just trying to get the tips, mostly the tops of these trees is where all the detail is going to be, so just want to make sure they have a little character to them. Sure to go off the canvas. We got, say, a few that stick up over here. Not super noticeable, but just a little. Okay. Now, I'm going to dry that real quick and we'll put that ridge in. All right, on second thought, before we do the ridge, I think I'm going to do some distancing. That top is a little bit too prominent, I think. So I want to come in with some of my original sky, you know, that very first color that I put on, but get a lot more water in it, and I'm making sure my underpainting, everything here is completely dry. I'm going to take some of that and just paint over pretty much everything that I have so far. Now, I may have to put another coat on these close-up trees in the front because they're supposed to be a little more prominent, but lots of water. This is scary, I know. Feels like you're painting over everything, but just want to go back and forth with a lot of water, make sure to kind of dig it down into the canvas. And then real quickly before it gets dry, I'm going to take my paper towels. This is just a clean paper towel, and kind of rub it in. This is not really wiping it off, more like rubbing it in. It's kind of circles. Flip around and get a dry spot. All right, you got to do this kind of quick, and again, you got to have about 50% water in that paint for this to work right. So that makes it more subtle, you know, makes it kind of foggy. I'm going to dry that and do that one more time. All right, again, you want to be completely dry when you start this. 50-50 water and paint. And it's not, it looks white when I put it on here, but it's not straight gesso. It's got that original gray color in it. Work it into the canvas. And before it gets dry, dry paper towel and circles. And the canvas texture will give you a foggy kind of, you know, foggy background, gives you a little texture. That lightened it up a good bit. I like that. Now I'm going to come back and go over these front trees a little bit. I could actually, while I'm in this, while it's still wet, I could come back with just water and clean those off a little bit. It actually works pretty good. And kind of wet them. Just kind of get them really wet. And then take a paper towel and they will come back out a little. That may be all it needs. Just a little technique. I think that's probably good enough. I don't want them too close. All right, I'm going to dry that. Okay, I am going to put these back in a little bit, at least on this side. They need to be pretty good, pretty dark. But if I don't get them solid, that's okay too. I like that. That it's going to have some little bit different, you know, values behind there. Yep, I like that. You have some bigger trees in the foreground here too that's going to cover some of this up, but might as well make it look good. At least on this side, I kind of like those a little more fuzzy. Okay, that's probably good enough. Dry that. Okay, next is going to be this ridge, and I just want to find the mid color for this. I want to get that shade of yellowish green as close as possible to that, and then we'll just block the whole thing, and then we'll come back and add all that texture. I think to get that, I'm going to start off with yellow. It's got a lot of yellow in it. I'm going to start with a lot of yellow. And then slowly add a little green and a little blue and a little brown. And it's going to look a lot different on this palette than it does on the canvas. It might think as I'm mixing this that it's too yellow. Looks almost like mustard. Well, let's see how close that is. Pretty close. It's maybe a little bit more, blue and brown, a little darker. And it is pretty yellow. Yeah, that's pretty good. A little more brown. All right, I'm gonna put it on the canvas and see what it looks like. It's probably gonna take a few coats of this because it doesn't have any gesso in it, so it's not gonna cover very well. It's gonna be pretty transparent, but that's gonna adjust the color a little bit for us too, the fact that it is transparent. There, and this ridge just kind of has a hill to it. Again, this is the overall basic color in that section in the middle there. It's not the, final things. Don't freak out if it don't look exactly right. All right, I'm going to put a little bit of my dark green mixture in that as I come forward. Yeah. For one, because I need more paint, but also because it does get darker as it comes forward, as we talked about. Yeah. Add some more blue, some more brown as I come forward and get it darker. This is just the first coat of it, so it's gonna get a chance to get exactly right as we go. This is probably as dark as I want it to be here. And then somewhere in there. Not really paying attention to anything but the values right now, how dark, how light. We'll get the color close, but we'll get it a lot closer as we get more layers on there as we come closer. I know that I want my corners to be the darkest while I'm here, and while it's wet, put some good dark in these corners. Put a touch of magenta in that as well, just to kind of offset that color just a little bit. Being the opposite color, it lets us have a sort of a shadowing effect. And this is grass. We're not doing grass texture just yet. Just kind of putting this on here. I'm going to actually smooth it out a little bit. Clean my brush off, and then I can kind of do a little smoothing. I don't care that it's perfectly smooth. Texture it later. Now, obviously, you're showing a lot through under here, so that's going to take some coats of that. So we'll dry that, and we'll go on with the second coat. All right, for this next layer, I'm going to switch to a fan brush. This is a natural bristle fan brush, kind of stiff bristles, and it looks like I may have taken some scissors to it at some point, but I'm start trying to get a little texture. Now, at far away, this texture is going to be really small. Not a lot to it, just kind of doing some scumbling under here. Kind of get a little bit of variation on the ground there. Doesn't take much. Over here where I need it to cover, I'll probably put more paint because it's it's going to show through. And this over here is pretty white, pretty light. This is where my first bison is going to sit. I keep wanting to call them buffalo because I'm from Alabama and I don't know anything about these animals, but they are, they're not buffalo. I figured that out from Google. Buffaloes are in Africa, apparently. We've been saying it wrong for hundreds of years. Or I have. Well, I'm not 100 years old, but you know. Let's see. A little more light in this area. Then it gets a little darker, so I'm going to start mixing in some darker shades. Still don't have any gesso in this paint. And as I get further away from the ridge, you're going to get a little bit bigger, you know, textures. Going to get some depth. I don't want to lose that green, that yellow though. It's still pretty prominent. It's almost like lime colored up in there. I'm okay with it. Just kind of tapping the brush downward to give some of that grass texture. Not trying to paint blades of grass. They're way too far away to see individual blades of anything. Just scrubbing. Now as I come down, we get into some darker stuff. Doing all this kind of wet and wet because it, yeah, that needs to be a little more brown. It works better when it's all wet and wet. There's some of this kind of in here. We'll do more up to the foreground as we go. One thing I like to do is just kind of put this in here, even in the small areas here and there. Just kind of put it in and then clean the brush out as much as I can. And come back with just water. Just water on the brush. Kind of tap around on it and kind of soften that up. Kind of blend those out a little. Don't think about grass, just texture. Just texture. We'll add some more. When you do something like this in a mass like this, you don't have to paint each blade of grass. You can do texture, and then at the very end, if you put 3 or 4 little blades of grass in the front, it'll create the illusion that there's a whole field of perfect blades of grass. Some of that. I think I like that so far. I'm going to go ahead and dry that, and let's start on some of the bigger trees. Now that it's dry, I'm noticing I'm a little bit too green. I need to tone that green down just a little bit. And to do that, I'm going to use the same color and add some magenta to it. Again, that's the opposite color, so that's going to make it more of a shadow tone for that, which actually gives me a little bit of kind of an orange shade to it. Yeah, that's a lot closer to what I want. I don't have to redo everything. This, you know, just adds another layer. Just going to give me a little different shade. Let some of that really light green show through. But especially here where it's really bright, make sure I get that color right. The color is what drew me to this picture to begin with, so I'm going to try to be as true to it as I can be. Let's see, I get a little bit of, there's some spots where it almost looks orange, especially like right in here. Yeah, I like that. Every little bit helps, every little texture adds to it. Even some of this down here. I don't want to get too much in my dark area, but just a little. I'm going to wash it off. Come back and correct some of that. I think that helped a lot. Maybe a little bit more over here, a little maybe a little thin. As you're trying to just tint the color, I don't want to change it extremely. The trick is just go with more water. Just put water in it. It's going to look one way when you put it on, but after it dries, it's going to show up a little lighter or a little less intense. So by doing it with a lot of water, you're kind of just tinting what's under there. Yeah, it's a good way to tint the color. It's still looking a little green in here. I'm going to cover some of this foreground stuff up with some, more distinct grasses and flowers and things anyway, so I'll be able to darken that up again. Just back and forth. Okay, I'll dry that and see what it looks like. All right, you got to make a decision on a tree that is sort of right here. The base of it is kind of right there. And the top of it comes up really into our lightest area, so it's going to come way up here. And it is a pretty prominent feature. I'm just going to kind of indicate where the trunk is here. This is an evergreen tree, so it's going to cover some of this up. And you got a couple little places where limbs come out, just here and there. Do the rest with a fan brush. I got a little kind of small fan brush. This is a soft bristle. Let's see how it works. I'm using a dark mixture of that same green we've been using the whole time. This is just, it doesn't have very much of anything but brown and blue. It's got a touch of yellow. And this brush might let me get enough tiny details in here. Get the corner of it. I'm just kind of going back and forth. Now in the picture, that brush has more on one side than the other, so I may try to do that. Kind of hoping the brush would do some of the work for me. Looks like it will a little bit. Again, this tree is kind of lopsided. For whatever reason, it's got more coming off of this side. And that first bison is kind of down here at the bottom of this tree, so I'll let it kind of finish off there. It does have some limbs on this side, it's just not quite as much. As little as it goes down, and then at the base of it, I do want a good kind of dark base under the tree there. A little thicker on this side. This looks a little too perfect. I'm going to have to bring it out here. I think I'm going to give a little bit of background here. Put some more water in that. A little bit more down here, because there is the second bison that kind of stands down here. Just water, I can help that a little. about that. Good thing about acrylics, if it's dry and you don't like it, you can always wipe it off. That part got out a little too far. Just kind of take some of that off. That worked. Clean it up just a hair. It's such a small area. That's one thing about painting on this smaller canvas. It works good for video, but it doesn't work as good for the brushes that I have. All right, there's one of them, and that's just the first layer of it. I'm gonna let the bottom of it kind of work itself out. Don't want to lose my yellow over there. Good. Okay. The second one of those trees is over on the right side, and it's not quite as full, but it goes kind of here. Ends up here. Kind of has a few limbs on it here and there. But it's also a evergreen. Just doesn't look quite as healthy. Little pine tree of some kind. And it's got a pretty full bottom to it. Just kind of sparse at the top. Something like that. That's a first coat, so that will work. While I got this brush and while I'm in this color, I might go ahead and try to darken some of this down here. I don't know, that brush is too new, too clean. Not quite chewed up enough yet. That works. Just to add some darkness. Now go back to my other fan brush with just some water, and again kind of push that around, work out any weird spots. Okay, I like that for a first coat. I'm going to hit it with a hairdryer and we'll do some more to it. Alright, this one on the right just needs another coat of something here where it wasn't really solid. I don't go too far with that, but I think that works. Now the bigger tree has a little bit of a glow to it. I come back with some of my light yellow that I was using, that with that almost orange color that was in here. And right on the tops of this tree, let's see if we can make this work. And this is that liner brush. I might have too much paint in it. I'll try to get some of that out. Right in this area, there was a lot of this tree that has right on the edges of it, it's kind of glowing a little bit. The way I do that is kind of put paint on, and then I'm going to use another brush or either my finger to kind of smear it around or smear it out. If you just kind of tap on it, it kind of softens it. It's working. It's on kind of both sides. Like I said, the sun is not really, it's kind of directly overhead. It's not really giving us a lot of direction. Yeah, that works. There's a pretty good bit of it on this bottom part. And all down this side as well. And you start off by just putting it on and tapping it around. Then you want to intensify it. I can come back with a little gesso in that color. A little bit more, maybe a little more yellow. Get a more intense version of it. And then I can, just in spots, can really intensify it. Same kind of thing. Put it on, tap it around. Yeah, I think that works. The other one, not so much. It doesn't have a whole lot of that to it. And this down here, there's maybe a little, kind of down here, a couple of holes in the tree. And actually there's some holes that are kind of blue showing through. Let me go back to my, see if I can come up with something similar to what our original sky color was. That kind of blue-gray. Yeah. And we got a few spots in here where the light's showing through the tree. Usually this is kind of around the trunk. Yeah, there's some spots where light shows through. And you can always do that out to the edges too. You can kind of break up any weird edges you have. You can kind of create a trunk in there where there's not one. I think that works. I'm going to break this up just a little. Yeah, that works. Just so I have that, soft glow on the top there. I think that works. This side didn't have a whole lot of detail. It's way over on the side of the canvas. It's just an afterthought, so I'm not going to do too much to it. But while I've got that highlight color, that bright yellow with a touch of gesso in it, it doesn't have a whole lot. Go ahead and do some little textures here right on the ridge. Where that sun is going to be the brightest. And then over here, this side had a lot of that orange in it. I'm really focusing on this middle area because that's where the focal point is. That's where the first bison is going to be. Kind of right in here. I have everything that needs to be done behind him done before I start putting them in. The rest of this I can kind of add as I go. But anything that needs to be done here needs to be done now. I like that variation of color. I like that little bit of orange in there. Get a little more out here. Okay, I think that's good enough for now. Let's go ahead and dry that, and I think I'm ready to draw or trace some bisons on there and block them in. Okay, I got these bison sketched in. Now, on the original, they're pretty small, so they're not going to be very big. There's not a lot of detail to them. So I'm first just going to block them in. I've got some dark brown, almost black. Just kind of going to get the main shapes in. It's just a small flat brush to start with, and I'll move to my even smaller brush when I need to. Just getting the main shape. Doesn't look like much. That's okay though. This one. You probably can't see that sketch very good. I can barely see it myself. On here. Kind of freehanded a little bit. Yeah, this looks like a shape right now. We'll get the details right in a minute. Take a couple coats of that and make it solid. So we'll go ahead and dry that. And then I'll come back and add some more detail to it. All right, I'll get in here a little closer so you can kind of see what's going on. See what we can do with this one. Not too much detail in this. Just enough that you can tell what it is, really. It kind of comes back like that. And I'm going to kind of solid the rest of this up a little bit. This one, for whatever reason, looks like it's got a tail that's kind of up here. And this part kind of comes down. I'm going to put some grasses and stuff at the bottom of this so it'll hide a little bit of this, you know, where there's not a lot of detail. Front feet kind of come together. And this is pretty much straight across. It kind of comes down to an almost squared off bottom nose area. This is got a little bit of a dip to it there. Bring these down just a hair more. Alright, that is not pretty. But it isn't pretty in the photo either, so just kind of painting what I see. It's just supposed to be solid right now, just a kind of a silhouette with a little bit of highlight on it, and the highlight is what's really going to make it look like something. I think we're going to get a little bit thicker here, a little thicker on that back leg. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, here's the next big blob of nothing. See what we can do with it. You can see that hump on his back. That's pretty important to knowing what it is. Okay. Comes out pretty flat right there. Big old head here. Starts coming down. And this one kind of has a little bit of a beard or something to it. Back leg. Brush ain't working right. Back leg's kind of in there. And the front legs kind of go together. Yeah, not a whole lot of detail, mostly a shape, a silhouetted shape. All right, some of that will come out in the highlights a little better. Okay, back to this one. Let's see if we can make it look better with some highlights. There's not a whole lot on these except a very bit of light on their back. This is just some light brown. And that comes right across their back, but it kind of shows off their shape a little bit. Down a little. Kind of lets me clean up some of my ugliness here. Use my finger and kind of smear that a little on the, soften that bottom edge just a little bit. Now this one has almost a straight line across here. It's about all that's on there in the photo. I'll show you what I'm looking at here. This is that's the photo. There's not a whole lot of highlight to it. Kind of got that stuck right above it so I can look at it as I go. We got just a little bit of light on the bottom of the ankle there. pull a little more in the middle here, help with that shape a little. And I think I'm going to have to add a little something to the top of this head just to make it look a little more right. So that's one shade. I'm going to add some more white to it, more gesso to it, and touch of yellow. Try to get it a little bit lighter, because then it has the very top edge is pretty bright. That does not look like much up close, but you always got to back up, because your viewing distance is not right up on it. It's back a little. About 6 feet is what they say is about an average viewing distance. So every once in a while you got to back up and see what it looks like from further away. With that highlight in place, we'll do just a little more. Even brighter. And this looks odd to start with, but I'm going to tint it in a minute. I think I'm going to do it this way. I put a little white. This is almost pure white. This is my brightest highlight. Okay. A little bit right there. Use my little flat brush to clean that up just a little. Make sure that top is pretty square. Okay, now that is too light, but what I'm going to do is dry that real quick. 1 second. Now that it's dry, we come back over it with some brown, and this is just the same brown I was using, but it's got more water in it. And so this is just kind of going to colorize all of that highlight, and I'll go ahead and paint the whole thing with it. And it's just going to make those highlights look more brown, like they belong to it. That helped a lot. Now, still looks like a blob from up close. Let's go to the next one, and then we'll back up and look at it from further away. Okay, bison blob number 2. That's what he's supposed to look like. They don't have a whole lot going for him. So we're starting there. Let's see what we can get. Same as before, I'll start with a light brown that's kind of mid-tone. It's not really the lightest. And just try to get these shapes in here. The back is kind of flat. Kind of comes down, and you got a lot more light right in there. Down back. There's a patch of light hitting right here on his back. Alright, we got some light in here. Not a whole lot of detail though, just kind of there. touch kind of right in here. Not much to that. Okay, same as before. I'm going to go to my lighter highlight color and get the spots that are really bright, which are kind of like in here, a little bit right there, you know, back here, touch right there. Okay, and then final, brightest bright, which is just straight white, is gonna go on the brightest parts. Give it a little bit right there. Just soften that just a little on the bottom. And I'm going to dry that and then color it. All right, now it's dry. Same thing, just some watery brown. No gesso in this, that's important because that would make it creamy. I may have just picked some up that might not have been completely dry just then. Let me dry that a little bit better. Okay, that should be better. Back again with the brown. Yeah, it's looking a little better. I'll wipe it off too much. Still not much to it. Try to clean some of this off right here. Let some of them highlights come out a little more. Okay. All right, let's step back. Okay, they're not perfect, but from back here they look a little better. I think I'm going to finish working on the bottom, the foreground, and come back then at the end, maybe, and do some more highlighting to those. But I know that in this foreground I need some more variation. It's still a little bit plain. I've got my another stiff bristle fan brush, and this one's a little kind of older, a little more chewed up, and smaller too. But I'm going to get some darker paint, still some of that green, do some more texture. This time I'm not going to smear it in as much. I'm just going to kind of let it be. And let that brush give me some stuff. Now, it's important when you're doing stuff like this not to let it be the same size all the way down. As you go further away, those little pieces have to be tiny. You know, you have to make little tiny dots. As you come closer, you can make more, you know, more like grass blades or whatever. Just gonna get a little more texture in here. I want to get some brown, darker color right around the base of these bison. They're kind of floating right now. By putting a little shadow under them, that got a little too brown. By putting a little shadow under them, kind of ties them to the ground a little bit more. And it gives you the opportunity to kind of hide some mistakes if you want to. That got out of hand. Let's try that again. Let's take a couple layers of this anyway. That's kind of see-through. Yeah. Create some unique textures there. I know that in the foreground I really want some dark stuff. I think I will start about right here and just lay in some. Let me get some of that paint off of there. You can kind of lay the brush down like this and it'll give you some grass type textures if your paint's the right consistency. And anywhere that's light, I'm going to make sure I put some dark, and anywhere that's dark needs some light, and that's just how you get, that little bit of contrast will give you some texture, some personality. This back here is smaller. Now the photo is kind of blurred out here in the foreground. There's some variation of colors, but they're kind of blurred out in a lot of places. But what I do like is there are a lot of little yellow spots that I'm assuming are flowers. So I'm going to make sure I get plenty of that in there. Let's see. See a little bit of a highlight back on the ridge, right behind the one on the left. There's a little bit of a kind of a glowing highlight that I kind of want to get right in here. Just a little bit right there. I like that. Kind of runs up this side too, a little bit. Now this hill in the back is going to be pretty bright. Yeah, like that. And I'm going to start with that color. Start making a bunch of these little spots back here. This is just, looks like just flowers, maybe little weeds, wildflower type weeds all over the place in this picture. Yeah. All right. Again, starting far back, and then I'll come forward with them. I use my finger to kind of blur them out a little bit, but also it kind of picks up from one place and moves them to another. It kind of helps you. You paint 4 or 5, and then you tap around on them with your finger, and they spread around. Bunch of them right in here. Trying to keep them kind of horizontal as possible. could also kind of flick these on. I may do some of that at the end too. Kind of put them on a fan brush and kind of flick them with your finger. Like that. Look, they're just in little kind of patches. They just an area of them. And some of those really far away ones I can probably get better with my fan brush. Just kind of tap. Just kind of tap that in. Let them be a little more solid too. I'm not going to blur them out as much. You want some that are blurry and some that are kind of more clean. The spots out that look weird. Okay. Put some of that. Let's see if I can get some of that orange that I was liking earlier. I'm not too carried away with this, but I like this color. Yeah. Blurry, and then come back with my small brush. Do some more detailed ones, some more that stand out a little more. Let's see. Kind of get the paint a little thicker. I really want to focus more attention now towards the subjects. There's flowers all over the place on this, but I'm going to put most of my focus towards the middle. I don't want to neglect the outside, but I'm not going to put as much stock in it. There are also some that are just white, or that are a lot lighter. Maybe they have a touch of yellow in them. They're a lot whiter. And so I'll do some of those. Won't take a lot of them. Those stand out, especially when you put them in a place where it's kind of dark behind it. Yeah. here. We get over here in the real dark area and put a few kind of prominent ones here in the front. Maybe even do some that have a little cluster to them, make them look a little more like flowers. Yeah, I don't want to paint you detailed flowers though. Just some. Alright, what else? Let's go back to the yellows. There's some down in this foreground here, but they're pretty blurred out. Yeah, I like that. Look how that got real blurry. You just put one on and tap around on it and it picks it up and makes 100 out of it. Then leave a few solid. Yeah. There, maybe even a few distinct grasses. I'll go with a darker, some of that color I was using for my bison earlier, the darker, almost black. See if I can get a good couple of little twigs or sticks or something in here. That ain't quite showing up good enough. It won't take much. Just a couple of little something in here. Yeah. Makes it look like you did a lot. Now I want to come back with some of that dark. Really tie these to the ground a little bit better. And then we'll put some more grass over their feet a little bit. I do like to get those shadows under there. This paint's a little bit too runny. Yeah, I don't want to stick. Then we get some thicker paint. Yeah, just a little something. His face could be straightened a little bit. And the picture kind of goes down into the grass a little. Let's come back with some lighter grass maybe. Too much of that. I think that's working. Another grass brush here. That's what I'm wanting to do, is get some more dark under there. That's better. Now sitting back looking at it, I got to sit back and see what else do I need. And I might do just a touch more on the backs of these bison. Just a touch more in the most important areas. Just to give it a last little bit of detail. That helped a little. All right, what else? Like that really bright right back there. Maybe a little more over here. Okay. I think that's about it. I know those are not detailed bison, but they're not in the photo. And if you do too much detail on them, then it throws off the whole, depth. If they're far away, you can't see them real clearly. If you get 6 feet away, this is not too bad. I'll leave it like it is. I think that's going to be good enough. I'm going to put the reference photo that I used in the description. If you want to paint along with this one, I welcome you to take a crack at it. Didn't turn out perfect, but I think I'm happy with it. I appreciate you watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and watch out for more videos coming soon. Thanks for watching.